You know, when a nation decides to follow its own path, when it says, we will do what's right for our future, not what others expect, that is when real change begins. It doesn't matter how powerful another country is. It doesn't matter how loud the pressure gets. What matters is whether you have the courage to stand your ground, think long term, and act with clarity. People always ask me, how do you survive in a world where giants are watching your every move? I tell them strength doesn't come from shouting back. It comes from strategy, patience, and timing. It comes from understanding what your people need, what your country needs, and what your values demand. That's how real leadership is built, not by obeying pressure, but by creating leverage. Sometimes the world is watching you. They think they understand your next move. They believe you'll follow the same old script. But when you surprise them, when you make a bold, unexpected move that puts your future first, that's when the world changes its tone. That's when power shifts. Not because you attacked anyone, but because you chose yourself. This isn't about ego. It's about vision. It's about knowing when to say enough, and when to say now is our time. Many nations wait for permission. The bold ones don't wait, they act. Not recklessly, but wisely. Not emotionally, but decisively. And that moment, that exact decision, is what separates followers from leaders. When everyone is watching you, when the lights are bright and the pressure is high, most people freeze. Most leaders wait. They wait for approval. They wait for validation. They wait for someone else to take the first step. Because it's easy to speak when the world gives you permission. But true leadership is never born from convenience. It is forged in discomfort. The kind of discomfort where you are the only one in the room who believes in what must be done. That's the test most people fail. And that's why bold decisions are so rare. A real leader doesn't just read the news. He reads the future. He looks at the situation and sees through the fog. He hears the voices of fear and doubt, and still listens to the silent voice inside that says, go. That voice is not always popular. It doesn't always get applause. In fact, it usually brings criticism first. But bold leadership doesn't wait for consensus, because by the time consensus is reached, the opportunity is gone. And the leaders who wait, they spend their time reacting to the moves of others. The leaders who act, they shape the moves others must respond to. There is a moment in every nation's journey where it must decide whether it will be a follower or a pioneer. That moment is quiet. It's not broadcast on the news. It doesn't come with a calendar reminder. It just shows up. And those who are prepared in thought, those who are clear in purpose, they see that moment and they grab it. Not with arrogance, but with clarity. Not with anger, but with courage. That's when the decision is made that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Making bold decisions isn't about having all the answers. It's about having enough conviction to move forward even when the answers aren't guaranteed. Think of any great company, any great revolution, any great turning point in history. It was never born in a comfortable boardroom or from a perfectly calculated spreadsheet. It was born from someone who said, I don't care if this is difficult. It is necessary. And that's what real leadership does. It doesn't avoid the storm. It walks into it. Because it knows the other side is worth reaching. You will never become respected by doing what everyone expects. Respect is earned by doing what others fear. When a leader takes a stand that challenges the current power balance, there is always risk. Economic risk, political risk, Social risk. But here's the truth, every meaningful action carries risk. The absence of risk isn't safety, it's stagnation. Leaders who avoid risk become irrelevant. Leaders who embrace risk, who manage it, who understand it, and still act, that's where the future is built. The biggest trap is to keep thinking, what will they think of us? A bold leader asks, what will happen if we don't move now? That question shifts the whole energy. Because no, it's not about fear. It's about responsibility. You are not leading for today's applause. You are leading for tomorrow's results. That kind of mindset makes decisions that others won't even consider. And sometimes, yes, those decisions shock the world. They shake old alliances. They rattle old systems. But that's not a mistake, that's progress. You see, silence is easy. Silence is safe. But silence in the face of opportunity is a form of surrender. And history doesn't remember those who stayed silent. It remembers those who broke the silence with vision. When the world expects you to bow, and instead you rise, that's the moment that defines you. That's the kind of leadership that cannot be ignored. When we look at today's world, we see so many challenges. Global pressure, political uncertainty, economic instability. It is tempting to say, let's just survive. But leaders don't survive. They build. And they build not when it's easy, but when it's hard. The harder it is, the more value the decision has. That's why most people are not leaders. Because leadership isn't about titles or speeches. It's about the decision you make when you are under fire and still moving forward. So, what happens when you stand up and say, this is our choice? This is our direction. And we don't need anyone's permission to do what's best for us. At first, the world resists. But then the world adjusts. That's the power of bold leadership. It doesn't ask to be accepted. It forces the environment to evolve. It doesn't fight to fit in. It rises to a level that demands attention. In every game of power, whether it's business, politics, or global strategy, there's one principle that never fails: the element of surprise. Most people underestimate the value of silence. They think silence is weakness. But actually, silence is where the strongest moves are born. The smartest players don't announce their plans, they prepare them. And when the timing is right, they execute. Highly, cleanly, shockingly. That's how true strength speaks, not through noise, but through results. When people are watching you, they expect patterns. They expect predictability. That's how they feel in control. But when you break that pattern, when you do something bold and unexpected, it disorients them. It changes the equation. And that's what power is. Power is not control over others. It's control over your strategy. The power to set your own direction, at your own time, with your own values at the center. That is the power that shakes the world. Business is no different. I've sat in rooms where people talk and talk and talk about their next move. They make presentations. They write reports. They give interviews. But the real power players say nothing. They sit. They listen. They study. And while the rest of the world is making noise, they are making progress. Then one day suddenly they launch something that nobody expected. And by the time the competition realizes what's happened, it's already too late. The move is done. The market has shifted. The opportunity is gone. In global politics, the same principle applies. The loudest countries don't always win. The wisest ones do. Wisdom is measured by how many headlines you generate. It's measured by how many silent moves you make that lead to massive outcomes. Moves that seem small from the outside, but are actually strategic turning points. That's what great nations do. That's what great leaders understand. There is a reason the best players in chess never boast. They don't talk about their next three moves. They just make them. And each one forces a reaction. This is the game most people don't even know they're playing. They're busy reacting to tweets, headlines, and surface-level drama. But the real game is happening behind closed doors, in long meetings, in quiet deals, in prepared actions. And those who master that game, those who don't need the spotlight to feel powerful, those are the ones who win. Surprise is not just about shocking others. It's about breaking free from the expectations that limit your growth. If the world expects you to follow, and instead you let that surprise. If they expect compromise, and instead you stand firm, that surprise. If they expect hesitation, and instead you act with clarity, that surprise. And every time you do that, you change your position in the game. You elevate your status. Not because you asked for it, but because your actions demanded it. To win, you don't need to shout. You need to prepare. You need to invest in knowledge. You need to understand the map better than anyone else. You need to know your strengths, your timing, your leverage. And when the world is least expecting it, you strike. That's not aggression. That's mastery. That's what every successful company does. That's what every strong country does. They don't act based on emotion. They act based on calculation. The loud ones often burn out fast. The quiet ones endure. Because their strength is not external, it's internal. It's built through discipline, through focus, through timing. And when they move, the results speak so loudly that no explanation is needed. That's what it means to win loudly after planning quietly. People who rely on noise are addicted to attention. But real winners are addicted to results. They don't just want to be seen. They want to be remembered. And that's why their actions are precise, not random. Focused, not chaotic. Strategic, not reactive. And in a world that's always looking for the next headline, these are the leaders who are actually shaping the next decade. Surprise is also a form of independence. It means you are not trapped by the expectations of others. You are not following a script written by someone else. You are writing your own chapter. And in doing so, you create space for new possibilities. For yourself, for your people, for your nation. That's the real purpose of strategy, not to win arguments, but to create outcomes. So don't fear being underestimated. That's a gift. Let them believe you are small. Let them think you will fold. Let them become comfortable. And when they least expect it, when they've stopped watching closely, that's when you reveal your move. And the move doesn't just change your position. It changes how the world sees you. Because the world always respects power, but it fears surprise. And that fear is often the most powerful advantage a nation or a leader can have.